Your brain is wired to be miserable, so rewire it with journaling to find your joy. I'm Naomi Wells, and together with my husband Chris, we created Wells Devotionals, books and journals designed to help you stay rooted in faith, no matter what life brings. Today we're talking about something simple but genuinely transformative, gratitude journaling, and how it can literally help rewire your brain for joy. The tagline shaping this conversation is, "Fix your brain." Now that might feel direct, or even a bit confronting, but it's true. Most of us were never taught that we have the power to influence our thought patterns. We assumed our moods just happened to us. But the truth is, the brain is constantly learning, shaping, adapting, forming pathways based on what we give attention to. And the default wiring of the human brain isn't joy, it's survival, which means it pays more attention to what's wrong than what's right, what hurts rather than what heals, what threatens instead of what comforts. That negative bias may have helped our ancestors avoid danger, but for us today, it can leave us living with anxiety, fear, comparison, and constant dissatisfaction. But here's the hope. Your brain is not finished. It's not fixed, it can change. And gratitude is one of the most accessible and powerful tools God has given us to shift our thinking. Scripture isn't silent on this. In fact, it calls us to a posture of gratitude, not just in good times, but in every season. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 18. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Jesus Christ towards you. This isn't about pretending life is perfect or forcing yourself to be positive when you're hurting. Gratitude isn't denial, it's direction. It reminds the mind that even when life feels heavy, God is still present. Goodness still exists. Joy is still possible. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why gratitude journaling works, how to make it practical, and how to make it part of your everyday rhythm without pressure or perfection. So settle in, take a breath, and let's begin the process of shifting your mindset, one intentional moment at a time. So first, to understand why gratitude journaling works, we need to understand something foundational. The brain is not built to make you happy, it is built to keep you alive. That means the brain pays more attention to what is negative, threatening, uncomfortable, or uncertain than what is peaceful or good. This default wiring is called survival bias. Survival bias is the brain's tendency to scan for danger before anything else. Thousands of years ago, that mattered for avoiding predators or unsafe environments. Today, it shows up as overthinking, worrying, replaying conversations, expecting the worst, and noticing what's missing instead of what's present. That's why the good moments in life often feel brief, and the difficult ones feel heavy and loud. Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain is simply wired for survival, not joy. But here's the hopeful part. The brain is changeable through something that is called neuroplasticity. The brain can form new neural pathways based on what we repeat and focus on. Every time you practice gratitude, even something as small as writing down one good moment, you send a signal to the brain to pay attention differently. This process activates what scientists call the reward circuitry of the brain. When you acknowledge something positive, like something that made you smile, something that went well, or something you appreciated, your brain releases dopamine. Dopamine is the motivation chemical. It tells the brain, that felt good, look for more of that. With consistent gratitude, serotonin also increases. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter tied to mood stability, emotional well-being, and calm. It's the same pathway many antidepressant medications target. Gratitude activates it naturally. At the same time, stress hormones like cortisol decrease. Studies show that people who practice gratitude journaling regularly sleep better, regulate emotions more effectively, and recover from stress more quickly. Not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because the brain learns to respond differently. So gratitude isn't just a positive mindset, It is a biological rewiring the brain away from survival mode and toward peace. And right now, especially as many of us head towards Thanksgiving season, planning meals, gathering with family, preparing to share traditions and food, gratitude can become more than a moment. It becomes preparation, it becomes training, it becomes a shift in how we notice life, not just during the holiday, but far beyond it. Gratitude journaling primes the brain to experience joy more fully. Instead of rushing through moments or emotionally shutting down under busyness, it helps you slow down enough to recognize what's good, what's meaningful, and what reflects God's kindness. Scripture affirms this posture of intentional thankfulness. This verse reminds us that this mindset is not optional, it is God's will for us. Proverbs 18 verse 15. The heart of the discerning seeks knowledge, but the mouth of fools feeds on folly. Gratitude is an act of discernment. It shifts attention away from fear and frustration and teaches the mind to seek evidence of goodness, God's goodness. So when you journal gratitude, you're not just writing words. You are retraining your brain. You are reshaping your attention. You are building a new default. And with repetition, joy becomes more than a feeling. It becomes a pattern the brain recognizes and returns to. One of the biggest misconceptions about gratitude journaling is the idea that your entries need to be deep, emotional, or life-changing. Many people get stuck before they even begin because they think gratitude should sound profound. Something like, I'm grateful for the miracle of existence and the breathtaking purpose of humanity. But most days aren't mountaintop experiences. Most days are ordinary: the school runs, the laundry piles, the emails, the noise, the routine. And if we wait for the extraordinary to feel grateful, we'll miss the hundreds of small moments God gives us every day. Gratitude is powerful, not because it's dramatic, but because it is consistent. From a neurological perspective, the brain doesn't care how poetic your words are. What matters is that you pause long enough to notice something positive. That pause creates the shift. The pause signals the brain to mark the moment. And with repetition, that pause becomes a new pattern. So instead of searching for something profound, start with what is right in front of you. It might sound like, I'm grateful the kids aren't arguing during breakfast. I'm grateful for clean socks. I'm grateful the heater works. I'm grateful someone made me laugh today. I'm grateful for fresh air when I stepped outside. These small acknowledgements help the brain build a practice of noticing good rather than scanning automatically for what's stressful or disappointing. Here's what's surprising. Research shows that noticing small, routine positives, what scientists call micro moments of joy, has a bigger long-term impact on mental well-being than rare big events. Why? Because daily repetition reshapes neuropathways far more effectively than occasional emotional highs. So if you ever catch yourself thinking that doesn't count or that's too small, remember, the brain is not asking for perfect, it's asking for repetition. And Scripture speaks to this connection between internal posture and outward expression in Proverbs 15 verse 13. A glad heart makes a cheerful face, but an anguished heart breaks the spirit. A glad heart isn't the result of perfect circumstances. It's the result of trained attention. So no, gratitude does not have to be grand, poetic, or impressive. It just has to be noticed. And when you train your mind to look for the small things, the ordinary begins to feel extraordinary. Not because life changed, but because you finally started paying attention. So now that we've explored why gratitude changes the brain, the next question is simple. How do you actually do it in a way that feels doable? A lot of people assume journaling has to be long, reflective, emotional, or beautifully written. And if that feels intimidating, then you're really not alone. But gratitude journaling is not about writing a perfect sentence. It's about training the brain through repetition. There are several ways to practice gratitude, and different methods work for different personalities, thinking styles, or even seasons of life. What matters is choosing the one that helps you return to the habit. So let's break down a few approaches. The 3 good things method. This is one of the most researched and effective methods. At the end of each day, simply write down 3 things that went well. They don't need to be profound. They don't need to be emotional. It could be, the coffee tasted good today. The kids played without fighting. The car heater worked. This method works well for people who are busy, overwhelmed, or easily stuck staring at a blank page because it removes decision fatigue. Your brain begins scanning the day differently, not for problems, but for moments of goodness worth remembering. Prompt-based journaling. Some people freeze when they're faced with an open page. Prompts provide direction, helping the brain locate memories more easily. Prompts could be, what surprised me today? What made me laugh? What felt easier than I expected? Who showed me kindness? This style works well for reflective thinkers or for seasons when emotions feel flat and the brain needs a gentle nudge. Gratitude plus why. This method adds emotional depth and engages more areas of the brain. Instead of only writing what you're grateful for, you add why it mattered. For example, I'm grateful for my warm coat because it made the cold morning feel bearable. I'm grateful for my friend's message because it reminded me I'm not alone. Adding the why helps the brain store the moment more deeply and strengthens emotional memory. Gratitude plus scripture. This approach creates a spiritual rhythm. You write one gratitude reflection and then pair it with a verse, not to perform, but to anchor the moment in faith. This method helps integrate gratitude into discipline and reminds the mind that gratitude is not random, it's a response to God's goodness. Photo-based gratitude. Some people think in images more than words, especially neurodivergent thinkers, visual processors, or those with busy minds. Instead of writing, you could simply take a photo of something meaningful. A sunrise, a cozy blanket, a smiling child, a meal that felt nourishing. Over time, the phone gallery becomes a visual record of joy, proof that goodness exists, even on difficult days. Each method works because it engages a different cognitive entry point: memory, emotion, language, creativity, or sensory experience. There is no ranking, no best option. The right method is the one you can return to without dread or guilt. And the scripture for this chapter reminds us exactly why we practice gratitude at all. It's Psalm 145, verse 9. The Lord is good to all. His tender mercies are all over his works. Gratitude journaling isn't about forcing positivity. It's about becoming aware of what God is already doing. Start small, stay consistent, and choose the method that fits the way your mind naturally works. Before we move forward, I want to give you a moment to actually experience what gratitude journaling feels like, without pressure, without perfection, and without needing a full notebook or a quiet room. This is a simple 1-minute practice. Wherever you are, driving, cooking, folding laundry, walking, or sitting, just breathe normally. Nothing dramatic, nothing forced. Just let yourself arrive in this moment. Now, I'm going to give you a few gentle prompts. You don't need to answer all of them. Just notice the first one that connects with you. Here's the first prompt. What made you smile today, even if only for a second? It could have been a song, a memory, someone's voice, a warm drink, a moment of quiet, or something completely ordinary. Hold that moment in your mind. Now a second prompt. What helped you feel comfort or peace today? It might have been a blanket, a routine, a prayer, someone's presence, or simply a moment when nothing demanded your attention. Just notice it, that's all. And here's one more. What did you experience today that you once prayed for? A relationship, a child, a job, a home, healing, stability, growth? Sometimes answered prayers become so normal that we forget they were once impossible. And take a breath. Now, in one sentence, either silently, aloud, or mentally, name the moment you're grateful for. It doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be emotional. Just acknowledge it. This small pause, this simple noticing, is the practice. You've just done it, and that matters, because every time you do this, whether it takes a minute or 10 seconds, you are signaling to your brain, here is something good. Here is something worth keeping. Here is something that matters. That is how the rewiring begins, one quiet acknowledgement at a time. I think we need to pause here and acknowledge something important. Gratitude isn't always easy. There are days when writing feels exhausting. Days when life feels heavy, complicated, disappointing, lonely, or overwhelming. And on those days, gratitude journaling can feel almost impossible. If you're in a season like that, I want you to know nothing is wrong with you. Struggle doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're just human. Gratitude isn't about pretending everything is fine. It isn't about ignoring pain, masking emotions, or forcing a smile when your heart is hurting. Gratitude doesn't erase grief, stress, burnout, or frustration. It simply offers another perspective, a way to hold both truth and hope at the same time. On hard days, gratitude might not look like long lists or joyful moments. Sometimes the most honest entry sounds like, "Today was hard, but I'm grateful I made it through." Or, "I'm grateful for breath, I'm grateful for rest, I'm grateful for one small moment of peace." If all you can write is one short sentence, that counts. Because on hard days, gratitude isn't about celebration, it's about survival. And even then, it will still rewire your brain. There's something powerful that happens when you practice gratitude in difficult seasons. Your brain begins building resilience, the ability to weather difficulty without collapsing under its weight. Gratitude grows the muscles of noticing, especially when joy doesn't come easily. It teaches the brain, even here, even now, there is something steady, something good, something grounding, something hope-filled. And Scripture speaks into this place tenderly and honestly. The verse for this chapter is Psalm 73, verse 26. "My flesh and my heart fails, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." This verse doesn't deny weakness. It acknowledges it. It says, I don't have to be strong to be held. I don't have to feel joyful to be loved. I don't have to be okay to practice gratitude. Gratitude in hard seasons is quiet, gentle, slow, sometimes shaky, but it's still holy. Before we move on, I want to offer a simple affirmation, not as a performance, but as something your nervous system needs to hear. Even on hard days, I am worthy of joy, not because of perfection, not because of progress, not because everything feels good, because joy is part of God's design for you, and gratitude is one of the ways we learn to access it again. So if today feels heavy, you're still allowed to practice gratitude. even if all you can manage is a small sentence or a whispered thought. Some days, that is enough. By now, you've learned the science, explored the methods, and even experienced a brief guided practice. The next step is making gratitude journaling something consistent, not just something inspiring in the moment. Because real change happens through repetition. The good news is, habits don't have to be complicated. In fact, the most effective habits are small, simple, and tied to something you already do. One of the easiest ways to build consistency is through something called habit stacking. That means attaching gratitude journaling to a routine that already exists in your life, like drinking your morning coffee, sitting in the car before work, ending your day, or settling into bed at night. Instead of creating a new task, you anchor the practice to something familiar. For example, while you're waiting for your coffee to percolate, write one sentence. Before you scroll on your phone, write one thing you're grateful for. When you sit down at night, list 3 good things. Habit stacking takes away the need for motivation, willpower, or remembering. It becomes automatic. Visibility also matters. If your gratitude journal is buried in a drawer, you're less likely to use it. But if it sits open on your nightstand, next to your toothbrush, or taped to sticky notes to a mirror, the visual clue reminds your brain, this matters. For visual thinkers, a corkboard, a digital note folder, or wall photo can also keep the practice alive and tangible. And here's something important. Start tiny. 1 sentence counts, 1 word counts, 1 moment counts. The brain doesn't respond to the size of the action, it responds to the repetition. There's a simple phrase that captures this perfectly. Make it so easy you can't not do it. That is how habits form. Not through pressure, not through perfection, but through consistency. And Scripture reminds us that gratitude isn't just a task, it's a way of living. Colossians 3 verse 15. And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which you also were called in one body, and be thankful. The peace of God ruling in our hearts isn't passive. It's something we allow, cultivate, and respond to. Gratitude is one of the ways we make space for that peace. So as you move forward, give yourself permission to make this simple. Make it visible. Make it small enough you can return to, even on your busy days, and even on your hard days. Little by little, the habit takes root. And eventually, it doesn't feel like a task. It feels like a rhythm. So now that you understand the practice and science, I want to invite you into something simple and realistic, a 7-day gratitude challenge. For the next week, write just 1 sentence of gratitude every day. Not a full page, not a list, just 1 sentence. There are no rules about what it has to be. It doesn't have to sound spiritual, poetic, or impressive. It just has to be honest. 7 sentences over 7 days. And that's it. This is about building consistency, not perfection. And if you need help on days where your mind feels blank or tired, here are a few optional prompts to guide you. What moment today felt like kindness? What did my body allow me to do today? Where did I see beauty or delight? What felt easier than yesterday? What am I glad I didn't give up on? Some people like structure, some like freedom. Both are valid. You get to choose the approach that feels natural to you. And as you enter this challenge, I want you to read the scripture assigned to this chapter. It's a verse that reminds us that growth isn't about strength, it's about grace. 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. You don't have to be consistent because you're strong. You don't have to feel joyful to show up. You don't have to get this perfect. Just show up gently, once a day, and let grace do the rest. And before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one reminder. Gratitude journaling is a small act, but it creates a big neurological return. It's not about filling pages, it's about training the brain to notice what is good. And with repetition, the practice becomes a pathway, and the pathway becomes a habit. So try the 7-day challenge, 1 sentence a day. Let it be simple, let it be human, let it be enough. And if you want to share your experience, your journal setup, or even a photo of one thing you're grateful for, I would love to hear from you. You never know who your example might encourage next. And next week, we're shifting gears and talking about the emotional clutter we carry and how to release it so the mind and spirit can breathe again. And remember, your brain is capable of change, and gratitude is one of the most powerful tools to begin that healing. So until next time, stay rooted.